Good morning. I would like to take a minute to talk about IPE and what that means to me. Prior to starting my PA program, I had no clue what IPE was. Now, the funny thing is, after learning about it, it's all fairly intuitive. I come from a background of teaching martial arts, so IPE was something I basically already did without understanding the framework or the structure or the vocabulary of just what IPE is. IPE stands for Interprofessional Education. Now, obviously, the education is organizations and people trying to take these concepts and these skills and break them down in teachable ways. So interprofessional sounds kind of self-explanatory, right? Multiple professions working together. Now, this is obviously very important for us in healthcare. As a PA student, I have to learn how to work with MDs and nurses and other PAs. And not even just that, but all of those professions from different cultural backgrounds, different religious or political views, and just different educational experiences. Even two PA students aren't going to have the same clinical experience. They're not necessarily going to have the same classroom experience or lab experience either. So it's important to be able to take all of these differences in mind and then work with them and overcome them if they might be a challenge. Now, again, coming from my background, I've worked with a variety of different students of all cultural, racial, religious backgrounds, and thankfully it's never been a problem for me. What has been a problem in the past is overcoming different challenges in communication. Now, obviously, anyone can say that in any field, but IPE is designed to help kind of clear some of that up and make sure all of us are good communicators and good team members. IPE is broken down into kind of four major domains. That's values and ethics, roles and responsibilities, communication, and teams and teamwork. And again, these are all fairly intuitive things. Values and ethics, pretty simple, right? Be a good person, don't break the rules, help out, and essentially love your neighbor. And as a Christian, that's all, again, very kind of ingrained in me. It's my worldview, and it's how I want to treat everyone around me, is through that lens of love and care, right? I don't want to kind of step on a coworker's toes trying to take over something. I don't want to come across as arrogant. I never want to work out of selfishness or pride or kind of like my own self-interest. I always want to serve and love everyone around me. And again, I understand that's not everyone's worldview, but it's still it's kind of this intrinsic human sense that, like, you know what? It's like I want to help my neighbor. Next, roles and responsibilities. Again, a fairly intuitive thing, and that's going to come as you learn about your career, just exactly what your role in the team is. But IPE is there to kind of help really define this well. I remember when I was doing my basic life support training, and we talked about how important communication is and having well-defined roles. Because if you have, say, for example, a trauma team, and someone comes in, they understand what's happening to the patient, it was, say, a motor vehicle accident, but you have a nurse, an MD, and several PAs who don't know exactly who's taking care of what. So maybe some things get done or checked twice, and other things completely get missed because no one knows who's doing what. That's a really bad example of a team. Whereas if everyone knows their role, say the nurse is checking vitals, the MD is getting the report from the paramedics, and the PAs are kind of establishing IV lines or whatever else they might need, if there's more clearly defined roles in that environment, less likely something's going to get missed, and in the end, hopefully better patient outcomes, right? So it's important to have those roles well defined. And of course, we've already been talking about communication this entire time. It's the thread that runs through all of this. You have to be able to communicate effectively and clearly. And that's making sure your team is on board with what their roles are, that everyone knows, like, you're on their side, you're working together, they know what's happening with the patient. At the end of the day, all of this is designed to improve patient outcomes. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And the last kind of domain of IPE was teamwork, right? And again, we've seen that all through everything I've been talking about today. Now, going back to the idea of improving patient outcomes, in the last decade or two, maybe even 3, there has been a major trend in medicine called patient-centered care, and it's very important. It differs from the old school worldview or medical view of paternal doctor knows best, right? Now, of course, there is some value to that, but there's a line, and it has been crossed for far too long. If doctor knows best, then that could fuel patient mistrust. It leads to bigger egos in medicine, which has always been a problem. But also, it leaves the patient out of the equation. If the doctor does know best, and honestly, sometimes they do, they might just tell the patient, this is what we're doing, and not explain why. And that might leave the patient confused or worried or just kind of out of the loop of their own treatment, right? So patient-centered care aims to fix all that, and they want the patient to be at the center of the equation so they know just what's happening. They know what to expect out of all possible treatment options, and then they have a greater sense of autonomy. They can pick kind of what treatment worked best for them, what they want to do, and they can share their goals with their provider. Now, obviously, there's a catch-22 here. If the patient has too much say, they might refuse the very treatment they need, and that brings up a whole other bunch of ethical dilemmas that we can talk about another day. But patient-centered care is the new trend, and it's very important to address. And again, IPE ties in beautifully to this because now you have a patient on the healthcare team. So it's not just the providers, the nurses, and everyone else. The patient now is on that same team. And as long as they're aware of your values and ethics, your roles and responsibilities, you're all communicating effectively, you're going to make a great team. And that's what IPE is all about. This class has been wonderful. I've had a great time working towards my certificate, and I look forward to learning more about it, not just through this class, but also the interview that I had with my friend who's a physical therapist, and also talking about this with other providers. And it's interesting too, because not everyone calls it IPE. Some people might call it collaborative care, which I love that name because it embodies just what this all means very, very well. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good day.